Good afternoon, everybody.
Good
I see,
afternoon.
good afternoon. I see we have people still joining the call. But since we're a couple of minutes past the hour, we'll go ahead and get started. So good afternoon to everyone once again. Welcome to the CCD All Hands meeting. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. My name is Tara McCall, and I'm with the TA team at First Pick. Before we get started, I want to note that this Zoom meeting is being recorded. By staying in the meeting, you're giving your consent to be included in the audio and/or video recording. If you're not comfortable being recorded, you're welcome to turn off your camera and microphone, or if you prefer, you may choose to leave the meeting at this time. So we will go ahead and get started now, and I will turn it over to Jody Spear at PIH. Jody?
Hello, thank you, and welcome everyone. Thanks for taking time to be here. You can go to the next slide. We will take a look at our agenda for today. This is sort of the high overview. We're going to talk about some program updates, looking ahead at what's next steps. We will talk about current enrollments and moves. We're going to share some recent study changes with you. And then also we'll go over some CMRS improvements based on all of your feedback. And next slide. I guess first we'll talk about PIH updates, program updates. And next slide, thank you. So there's been quite a few staffing updates. I don't know all of you. I've met a bunch of you. I'm Jody Spear. I work for HUD Public and Indian Housing. Previously, I think you all were working with Brendan Goodwin, and he has since left HUD, so I'm your primary point of contact for PIH. From PDNR, Teresa Souza continues to be your primary point of contact, and Katina Norwood also supports the program. We had several people who have left HUD from PDNR, including Marina Meyer, Ellen Dinsmore, and Margaret Courtney. So we still are all here. We're here for you. I'm your primary contact for PIH, and then Teresa, your main point of contact for PDNR. So program updates that you all need to know. So we have been talking about phase 2 SMRS, or select mobility related services. And a decision has been made that there will be no phase 2 at any of the sites. That does allow us, as we're going to be talking further throughout this meeting, about really focusing on CMRS and making that the best that it can be. With no phase 2, we don't need to have we don't need the same number of enrollments without phase 2, and also because we saw such great impact, so we don't need the original sample size. Based on that, we have made a decision for two things. One is ending study enrollment early. So study enrollment will end June 30th of 2026. And then to follow those families for 6 full months, data collection in the service delivery tool will end December 31st, 2026. So additionally, we are shifting from an overall total enrollment target to a monthly enrollment target of at least 25 families for each site. Of course, if you can enroll more, we definitely want to see that, but our target is going to be 25 per month for each site from this point all the way through June 30th, 2026. After June 30th, 2026, and after December 31st of 2026, when we stop the data collection for those families, sites will still continue to enroll families into the program. So uh, you just will not be doing the random assignment and the informed consent, because all families who enroll in your mobility program will receive services. And sites will continue to enroll families and provide services through October 1st of 2028. Technical assistance will continue to be provided by First Pick. So I know that there's some changes, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail, but the key points are early end for enrollment into the study part, and then early end for data collection for the study. The mobility program will still continue as intended. And the next slide, please. So where we're at right now, we're going to be talking about the CMRS improvements a little bit later, but just a couple of programmatic things. So program year 4 ended April 30th of 2024. So if you haven't already, please submit invoices through at least the end of year 4. And all of those invoices should just get sent to me. And year 5 budgets have all been submitted and approved. If you have adjustments, those also will come to me. So it's important that we get your invoices, and if you have any outdated invoices that you need to update, send those in, because we will be reconciling funds and reallocating unused funds to sites. So it's really important that we have current information so that we know and we can see what funds that you'll need. And then we are going to be focusing on mobility demonstration vouchers. So those vouchers are issued to families from the wait list. CCD generally has most of the families who have enrolled have been existing voucher holders who are moving. But we do want to have a focus on increasing enrollment to waitlist families. That said, wanted to remind you to enter information into VMS. And I think that there has been some confusion about what information gets entered into VMS. So I'll follow just with some written guidance, but a quick reminder. So mobility demonstration vouchers are to be assigned to families who enroll from the waitlist and are assigned to receive services. So control group families just receive a regular voucher. And then we've also had some agencies who are in potential shortfall. So wanted to remind you all that MDV vouchers, there's no restriction on that from your shortfall restrictions, but you can still continue to enroll MD or CCD families and assign them MDV, or for control group families, this is a regular voucher. We're going to be checking in with sites. If you are a site who had said that you were interested in doing a regional project-based voucher plan, we'll be checking in about that in the near future, checking back with you on your intentions on that too. If you are a site who did not say that you were interested in doing that, but you are interested to do it, you can reach out to me. That's still something that we can explore for you. So there's going to be a lot of things that come up today. You may have some questions and some clarification that's needed. And so there will be in the next few months a Federal Register notice that's published, so that all of anything that needs to be clarified or questions that need to be answered, that will be answered there. I think that covers that for now. I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Teresa Souza from PDNR, and she's going to talk about enrollment and moves. Teresa, your microphone is still on mute.
Okay, so we're having problems here. My computer, for some reason, my computer is not showing the slides. So Katina and I switch computers, and
What's going on?
is that okay? Is there a way, Tara, do you know why the screens might have disappeared from my computer?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know. Can someone confirm that the slide is still showing normally for everyone else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Teresa,
Yes.
it's
Okay.
showing on mine. Maybe it was the briefing this morning has screwed it.
Okay, so
Do you-
I'm changing my name and I'm going to be using this computer. So just give me 1 second and we'll be rolling out this. Okay. So my name is Teresa Souza and I am a social science analyst in the Office of Policy Development and Research at HUD, and I'm overseeing the community choice demonstration evaluation together with Jody and with my colleague Katina Norwood. So now we're going to share the status of CCD enrollments and moves across sites. So can you change the slide? So as June 1st through the end of May, CCD has enrolled a total of 4,440 households, families, including 2,242 who have been assigned to CMRS. In this slide, you can see the number of enrollments by site, which ranges from 326 in LA to 829 in New York City. Next. So we're going to talk about monthly enrollments through the demonstration in May. New York City and Pittsburgh had the highest number of monthly enrollments at 27 enrollments per month, followed by Minneapolis and Los Angeles, enrolling 22 families per month, and Cuyahoga enrolling 21 families in May. New Orleans had a smaller number of enrollments in May, about 14, but the site has been enrolling about 20 plus families each month in the past, so we don't see this as a concern. And Nashville paused enrollment in April, and of course had 0 enrollments in May. Next. So here you can see the search outcomes by sites. So including only households that are in phases 5 to 7 with reported search outcomes, 36% had an opportunity area move, 25% did not move, 14% moved to a non-opportunity area, and 19% had some other outcome. Los Angeles and Cuyahoga continue to have the highest proportion of opportunity area moves, followed by Minneapolis, Nashville, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, and New York City. But I wanted to note that this variation is just a reflection of the target population and local market conditions. So I don't think any site should be concerned about these numbers, and it's just something that allows us. It's a tool for the sites and for us to see how moves are going. Next. Okay, so a subset of sites have been enrolling CCD families into 2 studies, ancillary studies. The Mobility Opportunity Vouchers to Eliminate Disparities, the MOVE study, It's a study that is led by Johns Hopkins University and is funded by the National Institutes of Health. And it's a study that will analyze the effect of CMRS on adult obesity and diabetes risk. And the other study is the child assessment study, which is led and funded by HUD to examine the effect of CMRS on child health and well-being. Cuyahoga has enrolled 157 families into the studies, Nashville 154, and Pittsburgh 111. And Minneapolis joined the study in early 2025, so hasn't enrolled anyone in the study yet. I also wanted to note that we have had a pause in enrollment into the studies and into baseline data collection in early March of 2025 because Johns Hopkins is waiting for the approval of the yearly funding from the National Institutes of Health, from NIH. Next. So Jody already mentioned the recent study changes, so this is going to be most of a recap. So let's move next. So as Jody said, we canceled the design and implementation of the selective mobility related services, or SMRS. Because we were concerned that it would be difficult to launch SMRS by September of 2025. And we were concerned that a delay in the launch would lead to a potential reduced sample that could complicate our ability to detect effects. So without SMRS, we did not need the original CMRS sample, so we decided to end the study earlier, as Jody said, by June 30th, 2026. And PIH, PDNR, APT, and FIRST-PIC will be planning the discontinuation of study enrollment in the fall of this year, and we'll provide more guidance to you as soon as possible. We'll also end study tracking in the service delivery tool 6 months after the end of enrollment, or by December 31st, 2026. And again, we'll be planning this in the fall, and we'll provide more guidance as soon as possible. And finally, site liaisons will stop monthly meetings with each of you by December 31st, 2026. Next. In terms of enrollment target changes, we decided, instead of focusing on the total enrollment target like we were doing before, trying to reach that 1911 target that we had, we decided to shift to a monthly enrollment target. We have now about 12 months until the end of enrollment, so we're going to be looking at that. We'll be asking sites to enroll at least 25 families per month. And we feel like this target is not far from what sites have been doing, as you saw before. So we feel it is a feasible target that will ensure that we're fully utilizing the current funds and staffing levels that were set in CMRS. Finally, we want to ask sites to increase waitlist enrollments as much as possible. Right now, there are only 158 waitlist families enrolled in the demonstration, and we are concerned that we won't be able to detect impact differences between existing and new families. So the more enrollments that you can make for waitlist families will really help us learn more about how the program works differently for existing voucher families versus new admission families. Next. Okay, so after the study enrollment and tracking ends in 2026, the study team will continue to need the collaboration from sites on a few study activities. The first and most important one is to keep track of control families and exclude them from enrolling into mobility services until the end of CCD. And we're going to provide more guidance about that. We're working with the study team to define this more. So this will be the most important thing that all sites can do for us, just to make sure that we continue to keep control families in the control and not receiving mobility services and contaminating the random assignment. The second help that we'll need from you is to participate in interviews with the study team that are going to help with a revised cost analysis for the final impact report, and also to assist with interviews that are going to inform a study on long-term outcome evaluation that is going to be looking at post-move experience of PHA staff, service providers, and families. And this long-term outcome evaluation is still subject to appropriation, but something that we are hoping to do. And then on the right side of the slide, you see all of the activities that will continue to occur after 2026. So you will continue to enroll families into mobility services. You're not going to be enrolling into the study using the random assignment that we have right now after June 2026, but you'll continue to enroll families into your mobility programs, into the CCD, CMRS mobility program. You'll continue to provide mobility services to families, and you'll continue to new families and to CCD treatment families. You'll continue to submit program budgets, submit invoices, and report in BMS. So everything will continue until the end of CCD. Next. And here is a timeline of evaluation reports. Because we shorten the enrollment and service delivery, we shifted a little bit the reports that we're going to have. So we have a big report coming up now this year in November. This is the report that is going to provide a process, cost, and impact evaluation, and is going to look at participants since the beginning of their participation in the program, enrollment in the program, until June of 2025. So we hope, just like we did last time with the rapid cycle evaluation, we'll give you an update on where we are and what we're finding later on. In 2027, we are going to conduct an updated impact and cost evaluation, looking at as complete of enrollment sample as possible, and looking at them over a longer period of time. In 2028, we expect to have the results from the child assessment study. The long-term outcome post-move experience is something that is going to happen in the future and is subject to appropriation, but we think possibly will be happening in 2029, assuming we have resources. And then the MOVE study report, we're still working with Johns Hopkins to determine when that's going to happen, and we'll provide more information when we have it. Next.
All right, I am going to join you again and talk about improvements to the CMRS. Next slide. So just as a background, so last summer and fall, HUD visited all of the CCD sites, with one site being remote, but we visited everyone. And so we spent a couple of days talking with you all and really hearing about how things are going in each of the program areas. And through those visits, we learned about areas of CMRS that could be improved and also ideas about how they could be improved. So these are some of the areas that we covered. We talked about payment standards and opportunity area designations, the expedited lease-up process and inspections, and various move voucher policies. We discussed enrollment targets, and we did talk about new admissions and the challenges or the differences there. We heard from you about staffing, caseload sizes, what was working, what could be done better. We also discussed CMRS variation and fidelity, and also the service delivery tool. And there were a few areas that that you identified that there was need for improvement. We'll actually go over those also in a minute. So from those conversations, we developed a CMRS improvement plan. And I'm going to turn it back over to Tara to share with you the steps of those, the details of that plan. So Tara?
Thanks, Jody. So as Jody said, we've developed a CMRS improvement plan. As part of that plan, we have made updates to the CMRS guide in an effort to clarify existing guidance as well as to add new guidance on specific topics. And that's very much based on feedback that we've gotten from all of you. We've also made revisions to CCD enrollment materials to clarify what's considered standard services. We are continuing to monitor the updated payment standards. And again, we appreciate all the feedback that we get from you all about how new payment standards are impacting the program. We have also clarified the move process and considered some improvements that can be made in some sites. You'll remember that we collected that information from you all in the form of the move process charts. So we're continuing to monitor that as well. We have addressed concerns that we've heard from some of you about participants either experiencing housing insecurity or being concerned about the possibility of housing insecurity. And one thing we've done to address that is to add a new form to the affordability calculator. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. We've also clarified, made some clarifications around frequency of contacts with property owners, and we will be creating an opportunity for leasing coordinators to do some peer-to-peer learning around that. And that will come during our upcoming quarterly cross-site call. And also there have been some changes in terms of improving and clarifying data entry into the service delivery tool. So now I'll talk a little bit in just a little bit more detail about the changes that we have made to the CMRS guide. Right now, I'll provide a high-level overview of the changes, but we will be doing a webinar on July 10th with all of you to go into more detail about the guide changes to make sure everyone understands any new activities and requirements and to answer any questions that you all have about those changes. We'll be sending out the revised guide as soon as we receive the okay from HUD to do that, and we're hoping that will be in the coming days. So as I've said, we made updates to the CMRS guide to clarify existing procedures and requirements and also to add some new chapters that will provide additional guidance around work that you all are already doing at your sites. And most of these updates have been informed by feedback that we've received from you all, so we thank you for that. So we've added a customer service chapter. This chapter will provide guidance around expected response times when site staff receive inquiries from participants and from property owners. So anytime you receive an email, a phone call, or any other contact, this chapter will help support you in identifying the urgency of that inquiry, and based on the urgency, understanding what the response time should be so that those response times are standardized across all sites. We've also added a chapter on negotiating with property owners. So this chapter provides guidance on how and when to negotiate rent prices down with property owners. It also addresses other scenarios where negotiation may be necessary. For example, if you're trying to encourage a property owner to weigh certain factors more heavily than others as they're considering a participant's rental application. We've also made some revisions to actually 3 sections: housing needs, mapping family systems, and opportunity areas discussion. We've added language to those sections to emphasize the importance of prioritizing neighborhood amenities over unit amenities during the housing search process. So this is in response to some sites who've shared challenges around participants prioritizing unit amenities and therefore rejecting a high number of unit referrals that you're making to them. The added language highlights opportunities that site staff have at key points in the housing search process to remind participants about their motivation for moving or their why, and how focusing on neighborhood amenities can help meet their family's needs. As I mentioned before, we've also added a new form to the affordability calculator. This form is meant to provide information and assurance to property owners, specifically in those cases where the participant doesn't yet have a move voucher in hand. And so this has been done in response to sites who've shared that participants are sometimes concerned about the possibility of experiencing housing insecurity once they've notified their current property owner that they intend to move. Sometimes they're worried that they may find themselves in between units if they're not able to move within the designated time. So this form hopefully will help to serve as an assurance to property owners in the absence of the participant having a move voucher in hand, to show the property owner that the unit is in fact affordable to the participant, and to provide some numbers around that. We've also revised language around regular contacts. We've clarified what regular means in this context. And specifically for phase 3, that means weekly contacts. And for phase 4, that means bi-weekly contacts. So we'll certainly share more around that during the July 10th webinar. We've also made a change to the unit referral requirement. So leasing coordinators will have 10 days now to send those 2 required unit referrals to a participant that has just entered phase 4. So within 10 days of the participant entering phase 4, leasing coordinators will need to provide those 2 required unit referrals. We've also added a new form in an appendix at the end of the guide. And this form is an optional tool, so it's not required, but for those sites who feel it could be helpful to them, this form can be used by site staff for for participants who are preparing to enter phase 4. The purpose of the form is to ensure that key information is being passed along from the coach to the leasing coordinator about the participant and their family. We're hoping that this supports the team in making a warm handoff from coach to leasing coordinator, and that it also supports the leasing coordinator in being able to send timely unit referrals. And we want to thank Nashville for sharing this really useful resource with us. You all have been using this for some time and found it to be helpful, so we're glad to be able to share it with all sites. And finally, we have clarified the financial assistance that's available for second moves and for all subsequent moves. We've added some language so that that's clear And so that site staff are reminded to share that with participants. So I think oh, I'm sorry, and I've missed one item. We also added a chapter on accommodating participant needs. So we recognize that there are cases where participants may need some kind of accommodation in order to help them be able to successfully complete activities in any given phase. And so this chapter addresses that and provides some guidance around that. It also provides some guidance around supporting participants who may express needs that really go outside of the scope of the program and how to respond to those situations. So again, we'll be reviewing all of this in much more detail on the webinar on July 10th. And in the meantime, we will be getting the revised guide to everyone as soon as we can. So I will turn it back over to Jody.
Great, thank you so much. I am going to just talk briefly about the service delivery tool and the changes related to that. So there is some clarification added in the SDT related to search outcome options for families who are not currently moving. There's been improvements, some updates made to website guides and the training material. And there will be a new SDT training and recording, and it's not scheduled yet, but that should be coming pretty soon. And then the other thing is that when we did our site visits, we had shared data that showed across sites, and sites shared that that was helpful information to have. And so that's being prepared and shared with sites on a quarterly basis. So we hope that's helpful for you. Next slide. So covered a lot of information here. There will be follow-up training both for the CMRS guide and then for the service delivery tool. But guessing there's a bunch of questions. And so, so we're going to open up the floor for questions. But before we do, I do want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. If you have questions, you can either enter them into the chat, or you can raise your hand and then we'll call on you. You can take yourself off mute. And so I will pause at this point and see what kinds of questions you all have. Okay, well, we were really clear. So feel free to jump in and ask questions. I do have questions that, we had reached out to leadership from your sites in the last few weeks. So we have a few questions that sort of have been already asked. And so we can share some of those questions and some of those answers with you. I do, and then feel free to just jump in. Like I'll just go through some of those questions and answers. But if it piques your interest and spurs a question that you have, just feel free to just jump in the chat or raising your hand. Let me see here. So a lot of the questions may be more policy related, rather than like actual service related, but I'll just go ahead and go through them. I want to also share that these are preliminary answers. The planning that's related to a lot of these questions, all of that is to begin like in the fall. Some of these questions will be addressed in a Federal Register notice that we are working on. And so some of these are preliminary answers, and then you will get like a formal answer in the near future. But there's enough questions really about thinking about the future. So I will share those. So there is a group of questions around mobility demonstration vouchers. The first one is, what will happen to the PHA awarded MDVs, mobility demonstration vouchers? Will they roll into our regular voucher count, or do we stop issuing them at some point? So after October 1st of 2028, all of the MDVs will no longer be restricted to the purposes under which they were made available. They'll become part of the PHA's baseline number of vouchers. They will continue to be restricted to only being provided to families with children. So, yep, so as far as the baseline, they won't be considered the special purpose vouchers anymore. They'll be just part of your regular baseline. So what happens to the number of MDVs if they don't originally lease? So whatever your number of MDVs, if you don't originally lease that all the way up to the maximum number, will you lose that number at the end of the study? So we are looking into this. However, we do anticipate that any vouchers that had not been leased, that there's probably a likelihood that they'll be recaptured. So yet another reason to try to enroll families off of your waiting list at a higher rate. The next question related to MDVs is, can we issue MDVs if we are in shortfall? And the answer to that is yes. So PHAs may continue issuing vouchers to families on the waiting list to participate in the demonstration until they have met the leasing criteria, even though this means you would be issuing both MDV vouchers and some of your just regular baseline voucher to the control group families. Okay. The next group of questions is, I guess, a couple questions related to payment standards. So if a PHA is in a mandatory SAFMR area, but has a waiver, a variation to the SAFMR, after the study ends, what happens to that waiver? So the payment standard waivers are being approved through the regular payment standard waiver process. And so if you have an existing waiver, it's likely that that expires December 31st, 2025, and then you would submit another one, which would be approved then for the next year, and that just would continue that way. Then there's a question about when is the last date that we are required to use higher payment standards? So as part of this study, as part of the demonstration, sites are required to have payment standards adequate to lease units in the designated opportunity areas. So they will continue to be required until at least December 31st of 2026. And so, so this is an area that we may, so we'll have a conversation about whether or not it will be required beyond 12/31/2026 through the end of the demonstration period of 10/1 of 2028. However, our initial answer on that is that you will be required till at least 12/31/2026. Okay, anybody have questions yet? I can keep going. Okay. So the next group of questions is related to policies and procedures. Can we change our enrollment practices after June 2026? So for example, right now we are randomly selecting families to be invited to CCD. So the answer to that is after June 2026, sites can modify their enrollment approach. So as Teresa mentioned, though, is that we're working with the study team right now for clarification. However, We believe that there will be a restriction from enrolling families who were assigned to the control group during the study enrollment. More clarification on that, but that's our initial answer on that. As far as everything else, your PHA will be able to make modifications. How that works for you, there's no restriction. You don't have to do a sample. You know, maybe you just invite all families who are moving or something like this. There won't be, so it won't be restricted to what your current enrollment plan is. And I think that that's probably an area where we'll be able to provide some technical assistance through as we're doing the transition. So can families, I guess this is kind of related, but can families enrolled in the treatment or control ask to be enrolled after June 2026 and before the end of mobility services in 2028? So families in the treatment group, of course, can come back for subsequent moves, but families in the control group will likely need to be excluded. After 6/30/20, I mean, these are all kind of similar related, but I have one more, is that do we have to adhere to the rules of the enrollment plan after June 30th, 2026? So you may need to continue to do some screening at the point of invitation and before enrollment, just to make sure that you're not enrolling a control group family. But other than that, we don't anticipate that there's any other rules as far as enrollment that you'll need to follow. Will we have flexibility beyond statutory requirements to change mobility services after December of 2026? And so this is a really big question, but generally speaking, the answer is that you will be able to make changes to the mobility program so that it best fits within your program. It will no longer be part of the study. So study enrollment end June 2026. Service delivery collection through the service delivery tool ends December 31st, 2026. And so after that, you'll continue to operate a mobility program, but it's no longer under the study. So you will have flexibilities. So will there continue to be technical assistance after December 31st of 2026? And the answer to that is yes, there will continue to be TA provided. We don't know yet what that looks like exactly. The need for the TA is going to be less, but we do anticipate that there is still going to be a need. So that's going to be, a pretty core component that we'll be talking about as we begin the transition planning. Will fidelity monitoring interviews be continuing? So, and Teresa did answer this, but fidelity monitoring will continue through 12/31/2026, but not beyond that. And will qualitative interviews continue to be conducted after December 2026? And they may be scheduled beyond 2026. And I think this one was also in Teresa's slides that it will depend on appropriations. Then there's some questions about funding.
One of them is not dependent on appropriation. One of them will happen.
Okay.
And the other one dependent on appropriation.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa, for clarifying that. Okay. I have several questions that came in related to funding, and I don't know if, that's really about budget and planning. So I'll provide those answers when we provide written response to you all, but just quick and generally, like, are you still going to receive funds for all of the service delivery? Are you going to receive funds for enrollment and oversight and all of that? And the answer, just the general answer is yes, you're still going to be receiving all of those funds through October of 2028. And so I have a bunch of nuanced questions, and so I don't know that I need to get into the details of all of those at this point, but there is still going to be funds for funding all of those activities. And beyond 2028, if there are funds that's been allocated to your site that you haven't used, but you want to continue to operate a mobility program, even beyond October 1st of 2028, those funds will be able to continue to be used for a mobility program. We have a few questions related to the enrollment tool and the service delivery tool. So after June 30th of 2026, the enrollment tool will be shut down. So for sites who anticipated continuing to use, because you're not going to have to do random assignment or anything, so it's really just signing families up to the program. So the enrollment tool will be taken down after June 30th, 2026. The service delivery tool, we anticipate that is coming down after December 31st of 2026. However, we recognize that it's also being used as a case management tool, and case management is still going to continue beyond 12/31/2026. And so we are exploring options for that right now, to see if there's a way that we can modify the tool and allow you guys to continue to use it, or could we help in developing a new tool, or could CCD funds be used in the development of a new tool? So we know that that's a big question, and we are fully planning to support you in that transition. We just don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but we're going to support you all the way through that. That is the list of questions that I have ahead of time. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I can't see everybody all at once in the attendees, but
Hey, Jody, I have a question. It's Antonetta from Pittsburgh.
great to see you.
Nice to see you too. I think my question was already answered, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. It sounds like while you want us to try to get more waitlist enrollments as part of that 26 a month, there's not like a clear target. It's just like try to, get more, but there's no set portion.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do not have a set portion like the 25 per month overall. It's going to be really site specific, because every site is sort of in a different situation and has different, so we don't have a target that applies across, but
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Definitely. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Hey, Tina.
Hi. I want to make sure I heard this right. You were saying beyond 2028, if the sites still have funding and we want to continue services, we are permitted to do so. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So if you have allocated funds that haven't been used beyond 2028, you'll be able to continue to provide services and use those funds. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that was in last year's Federal Register notice. Just for reference, yeah.
The other thing you said, it was after December 31st, 2026, we will have more flexibility on how we deliver services if we choose to make changes to kind of what's in the guide.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a big part of our planning. And so I don't have the information right now. Like, are there certain areas where we might say that it should remain the same. So that's a nuanced question that I don't have the nuanced answers for, but yes, after the study has completed, then it just becomes a mobility program and no longer the study.
Thank you.
So if folks do have questions, you can feel free to email me, or you can, bring it up during your meetings with First Pick, and that will come back. We do have a bunch of questions, and so we will have some sort of, a bunch of them will probably be addressed in the Federal Register notice, but I anticipate we'll have probably some sort of an FAQ that goes out as well, so that we just make sure we're covering everybody's questions. I am not sure if everybody has my email, so I'll go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay, well, hearing no further questions, we scheduled for an hour and a half just to make sure we had time to get through everybody's questions, but we can certainly give you a half an hour back and end a little bit early. Definitely appreciate your time to be with us this afternoon, and look forward to continuing to work with you. Will there be an opportunity for sites to provide feedback on the SDT before the post-study plan is finalized? So yes, we don't, I think that we definitely are going to have engagement with sites about what that looks like after December 2026. I think at this point, we're just exploring what options that we have, but we will be absolutely getting feedback from sites on what the needs are and what that looks like. Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, have a great afternoon, everyone. And again, thanks for joining. Look forward to seeing you the next time.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.